Studio Ghibli. It's something I've heard of for the longest time, almost as long as I've been a fan of anime. Ghibli films are really foreign to me, despite them hovering around my life since forever. Having realized this, in high school, I made plans to watch all the Ghibli films one summer, but I just never got around to it. With the first film being released in 1984, all the movies are notorious for their distinct art style and charm, which made me want to watch in the first place. People will tell me about their favorite Ghibli film all the time, and it just leaves me kind of lost because how did I go almost 20 years without fully watching a Ghibli film? I really want to know if these films are actually good or just hyped up by everyone. So that's what I'm doing today, watching every single Ghibli film and ranking them. If you're new here, why don't you subscribe for more videos just like this? I have another video just like this, and I was doing a Naruto spinoff, and I do plan to make some more videos in this kind of style, so subscribe to stick around. Perfect if you love long videos for going to sleep, doing work, or just need some background noise. Without further ado, here's our first film. Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind is our first film, and let me tell you, did you know that Shia LaBeouf is in this movie? And yes, he plays Nausicaa. Now for the actual film. Society has crumbled and everyone is trying to survive in a desolate reality still known as Earth. We get these ancient glyphs of presumably what happened to the world before it got to the way it is now. We meet Nausicaa, who's the princess of the Valley of the Wind. I guess you could say that she's Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind? But we don't find this out until about 15 minutes into the film. She gets back to the valley where she learns of an old prophecy where people and nature will be brought back together through a man dressed in blue. Later that night, there's a huge airship that needs to make an emergency landing. When Nausicaa gets close to the ship, she sees a bunch of bugs from the jungle on it. She ends up crashing.
Watch your jet, bro. Watch your jet.
So when she checks for survivors, she sees a girl chained up. The girl says to burn the cargo, but then passes out immediately. The next morning, everyone is looking for any poisonous spores from the jungle, but Yupa stumbles upon a beating part of flesh. He says that he heard a rumor of a giant warrior emerge from a neighboring civilization. All these giant warriors supposedly turned to stone 100 years ago, but this was likely an egg for it. The valley is soon ambushed by more people from the previous group. They come to talk about unification and burning the toxic jungle. Obaba says that it's impossible to burn the jungle because insects will rampage through whatever town they can and consume it into the jungle. Reluctant, Nausicaa agrees and tells everyone to stand down. The Talmekians and Nausicaa head to Pejite, but the fleet gets attacked by a gunship. Only 2 of the small ships were able to escape narrowly. Now they're trying to reconvene in the jungle. The Talmekian princess threatened to shoot the rest of the group, but they need to leave as fast as possible because the insects will start to swarm. Nausicaa goes and finds the fighter pilot from earlier since he's still alive in the jungle. They both fall into this hole and we get this really gorgeous flashback scene of Nausicaa as a child. She wakes up to Sabaody Archipelago. Back in the Valley of the Wind, the giant warrior's development is getting closer to completion. The Talmekian princess says the giant warrior can't be destroyed and will only move on its own. They're quickly interrupted with news that the spores are in the valley and the spores might take over the valley if they don't act quickly. Nausicaa makes it to Pejite, where the whole thing is destroyed by more insects. Turns out that people of Pejite were luring insects to the valley to kill all the Talmekians. Nausicaa is captured but is freed by Aswell and the other nice Pejites. Now I'm gonna speed through the end of this movie because I have some shit to say about it. The last half hour is the slowest race against time in the history of man. The insects are on their way to the valley, so Nausicaa tries to get there before they do. She stops the stampede of bugs, but is trampled over, but survives with the bug tentacles. Everyone is happy and they all appreciate the bugs. Turns out the prophecy of the blue man was about Nausicaa. That blue she's wearing is bug juice. That's it. This movie was long. 2 hours of a bunch of scenes that dragged on way too long. I think that this might have been my main issue with the movie. Everything just felt so prolonged. And things just needed more time, and they glossed over a bunch of things because the film was already 2 hours long. In the beginning, I thought we were going to get a ton of questions answered, like what was society like before the world got destroyed? What are the warriors and where did they come from? What was the war like? How did the forest come about? And I think only like one of those questions were answered. I also feel like the ending was kind of cheap. I mean, like it was right in front of us, so like was like, oh yes, Nausicaa's really the prophet. She wears blue. But it just kind of felt underwhelming, and especially like the presentation of it. And of course, this movie wasn't all bad. I like some of the settings in the film, especially the Valley of the Wind. Most of the character designs were pretty interesting too. Each town had their own ships and clothes specific to them, which was a very nice detail. I also love that scene that I mentioned before with the flashback. The shading adds so much to it, and it looks like a lot of the imagery in Attack on Titan. I saw people in the Animewave comments saying that the movie was a 10 out of 10, but I really think that's far from the truth. This movie is not great narratively. It's a simple case of style over substance with this film, and I'm hoping that it isn't the standard for the rest of these films. Either way, the first film on the list, but I definitely see this one going down very soon. I didn't know that Studio Ghibli had so many films to begin with. I thought it was like a solid 7 in total, and I've never seen or heard of this one before, and I'm going in 100% blind. We start off with an airship being raided by a bunch of bandits. Sheeta, our main character, has some sort of amulet that they want to get a hold of, but as she's trying to escape, she falls off the ship. This amulet has some sort of magical power that keeps Sheeta from dying. Let me just say, the first 5 minutes of this movie looks absolutely incredible. Like, I know we're only 5 minutes into the film, but the opening sequence with the land and the buildings flying had me so choked up with this overwhelming feeling. It's hard to describe, but once you see it, you just kinda get it. A boy named Patsu from a nearby town finds an unconscious Sheeta. She's finally able to wake up the next morning to meet Patsu, but she doesn't remember anything before the events of the airship. Sheeta notices a picture of a floating island. It's called La Puta, and not very much is known about it outside of the picture. Patsu's dad was able to get a picture of it, and he was able to document as much as he could, but no one believed his stories. This ended up getting him killed, so Patsu wants to find the island himself and prove that his father was right. Just as this happens, the pirates come. They chase the two kids into town where one of the residents and the pirates have a macho off. This ends up in an all-out brawl, which ends up giving the kids time to escape. Sheeta and Patsu are able to catch the train and get away from the first group, but are cornered by another group of pirates. They're able to get away with the power of Sheeta's crystal and end up underground. We found out that Sheeta used to live on a farm by herself until some men came and kidnapped her, but neither of them really know why the groups are after the crystal. They quickly get interrupted by Patsu's grandfather. He tells them that the crystal is made out of Ethereum and only people of La Puta know how to get it in its purest form. Once they depart from the mine, they're surrounded by soldiers. Both get captured and get put into custody. Sheeta is met by a brown fella, and he tells her that he wants to go to La Puta in order to take power of the floating island. Sheeta cooperates only for the sake of Patsu. When Patsu gets home, he's greeted by the pirates from earlier. She explains that the government is willing to hurt her, and now they're going to depart from the mine town. So they all gear up and head for Sheeta. While waiting to depart, Sheeta remembers a spell that her grandmother taught her. Because she casted this spell, the robot that came from La Puta awakens. The robot starts rampaging and destroys the castle, but Dola and Patsu were able to save her. During this whole mess, she dropped a crystal that points to La Puta. The two asked Dola to join a pirate crew to find La Puta before the military does. Okay, so my jaw dropped when I saw this shit. These grown-ass men tried hollering at Sheeta, and I don't even want to talk about that any more than I have to, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. As they're on the ship, they get pushed off track by Mushka's ship, and now have to navigate through the storm to stay on track. As the storm gets worse, Patsu realizes that La Puta is inside the hurricane. As the pirates are trying to move closer, Dola's ship gets shot down. Sheeta and Patsu finally land on La Puta. They get to this memorial and the little animals from Nausicaa. The memorial is disturbed by a giant explosion. The military start loading their forces onto the island, with the Dola gang being captured. Now Patsu and Sheeta have to figure out how to get the military off La Puta and take back the crystal. As they're making a plan, Mushka, is it Mushka or Muska? I don't know. I wrote Muska. Mushka takes Sheeta to the center of La Puta, where all the city's scientific knowledge is held. They reach the chamber where the biggest Ethereum crystal is, and Mushka reveals that he's also a descendant of La Puta, just like Sheeta. Mushka wants to bring back the city of La Puta, and now the only person that's able to stop him is Sheeta. Mushka traps Shida in the throne room, but Patsu is able to get there just before he could shoot her. Patsu is given 1 minute to talk to Shida, so he tells her to say a spell that will destroy Laputa. They both say it and boom! The island erupts, but the top half is still intact, with Shida and Patsu surviving in the roots. They get their glider and sail off with Dola Gang. And surprisingly, that's it. I actually really enjoyed this film. It was very long, and admittedly, I watched this one in chunks, so even so, it still felt like a long movie. I thought this movie was very well paced, especially compared to Nausicaa. The movie had a lot more going on, and it had very little downtime in between events happening. In Nausicaa, there were a lot of aesthetically pleasing scenes, but it had little to do with the plot. But with Castle in the Sky, these same scenes were integrated into whatever plot point was going on, so it reduced them to a minimum. It felt like the studio improved everything between these two films, and even the things that were already good, like the animation, just felt like a complete step up. The animation for this movie felt ahead of its time, and I'm pretty sure I'm watching like a HD remaster, but this film looks gorgeous. What I liked the most was how everything felt scaled correctly. There's this one scene where they're flying across the countryside, but it felt so big, and the valley that Patsu lived in was so vibrant and massive. The best thing I can compare this to is watching an animated version of Breath of the Wild. I wish I could roam around in this place because it's so nostalgic looking. This movie oozes charm, and I think it mainly comes from Shida and Patsu. Their relationship is so wholesome, and I really enjoy them being together. I really loved the scene of them on top of the Dola airship. It was incredibly somber, and it felt like they'd been friends for forever, rather than a couple of days they'd known each other. The cast of characters wasn't too big, so it's definitely much easier to follow along, and the soundtrack was also really good. It sounds very windy, and you'll get it once you kind of listen to it and watch. You'll understand. Honestly, this was a great film and probably will stay pretty high on the list. It wouldn't be a surprise if it ended up being my favorite out of all of them. Castle in the Sky is sitting at the top of the list. Now this is a film I'm sure everyone has heard of. The thumbnail is literally the squirrel thing. I tried watching this movie when I was younger twice, but I was never able to sit through the first couple of minutes. Let's see if this one is worthy of praise because this is the Ghibli movie. This one starts off with the Kusakabe family moving to the countryside. I'm gonna make an assumption and say that the mom died prior. I bet everyone 20 bucks. Satsuki and Mei head to the back of the house where they're met with these small black creatures. These things are called suit sprites, which is explained by the old lady that cleans their house. About 20 minutes later, something finally happens. Mei sees this ghost rabbit thing while she's playing by herself. She tries to follow it, but then it disappears. She chases it to the house where another bigger one comes out and tries to escape with a bunch of acorns. Mei chases the rabbits all the way up the mountain and then falls in a hole where she meets the giant squirrel, and its name is Totoro. We spent like 2 or 3 minutes just listening to Totoro snore. Satsuki gets home from school and looks for Mei, but when she wakes up, she tells her sister that she saw Totoro. But when they look for the tunnel that he was in, the tunnel only leads back to their house. The next day, the girls get caught in the rain, and then they realize their dad left his umbrella too. So they go and wait by the bus stop for him so that he wouldn't get too wet. As they're waiting there, Totoro just pops up. And there's the thumbnail, that's the thumbnail. Totoro takes their dad's umbrella and gets on the cat bus and then just leaves again. They get home to sleep and they see Totoro again doing a dance around the seeds they planted from the cat bus encounter. They sprout the seeds and fly with Totoro on a magical top. I can't make this up, by the way. The next morning, they get news that their mom won't be able to come home. So Mei and Satsuki have a big fight and Mei runs away. Satsuki goes to Totoro for help and he gives her the cat bus. The cat bus finds Mei, then they go to the hospital to drop off the corn. I don't like this movie. I thought this would be kind of like a Save the Forest and the characters learn something about themselves kind of film, but I was completely wrong. This movie was very, very slow, despite being one of the shortest ones we watched so far. I feel like it was slow because most of the time is spent with the two girls, and we barely get to see Totoro. Whenever Totoro is on screen, the movie instantly becomes 10 times better, because those scenes feel magical, but we don't even get to see them until about 25 minutes in. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't a bad movie. Of course, I like the animation and the setting, and the soundtrack was pretty good too. But I think this film just kind of lacked direction. There were so many points in the movie I was just like, is something gonna happen? And when something did happen, at the end of the movie mind you, it kind of felt rushed and underwhelming. I had high expectations for this movie. I was kinda under the assumption that this was the studio's magnum opus, but I really didn't care for it. This one's going above Nausicaa. Fun fact, this and Totoro came out on the same exact day. I think I've heard about this movie, but I can't really remember anything about it. This one starts off with a boy dying. Yeah, we're off to a pretty grim start here. This film takes place after World War II and recounts the happenings of two siblings during the whole thing. Seita, the older brother, and Setsuko, the younger sister. The two try to find refuge during a bombing and try to figure out where to meet their mom since they got separated. Once they get to the elementary school where medical assistance is being provided, Seita finds his mother bandaged up from head to toe. He lies to Setsuko and tells her that she's in a hospital nearby and that they can rest at an aunt's house. They stay at their aunt's house for a good while up until she starts treating them like burdens. Seita, reaching his limit as well, decides to live in an abandoned shelter. He finds out that Setsuko knows that their mom is dead. And that really hit hard because it felt like all he was doing for her was completely in vain. Seita now has to resort to stealing from farmers and from other people during the attacks. While this is happening, Setsuko is getting worse and worse, to the point where she can't even eat by herself. Seita goes to the bank to withdraw some money so that they could eat, but then he's told that Japan surrendered to the US, but all the ships were destroyed, which most likely included his dad. He gets back to the shelter with some rations, but Setsuko doesn't wake back up. The film ends with Seita burying his sister and them overlooking the city. This movie is incredibly real. I didn't think that any of these movies were going to be as dark as this one, but this is a welcome change. I like this film for the most part, mainly because of Seita's efforts to keep his sister safe as much as he could. We see him progressively get more and more desperate as the war goes on. He resorts to stealing, he moves away from his aunt's house, he lies to Setsuko about different things, and most of the things don't even matter in the end because we're immediately told that he dies. It creates this weird feeling of hopefulness while watching and is completely connected to Seita. You see him really try to keep up this optimism, but it just seems like everything around him is just meant to mess up. Starting from the beginning, their mom is dying from a bombing, then his aunt is making him seem like he's a burden, and finally finding out that his dad is dead too. Towards the end of the film, reality just sets in and it makes you feel pretty terrible. I love the feeling. I think the movie did drag a bit when they were at the aunt's house, but other than that, I really enjoyed this film. There was a scene at the very end where people were returning to some sort of vacation home, but right across the lake, the bunker that the siblings were in was literally right across the lake. It really drives home that message of ignorance is bliss, and it really makes you wonder, how many innocent people did this actually happen to for the sake of war? This movie is going below Castle in the Sky, and I highly recommend you check this one out. I do know that there is some heavy hitters that might go above this one, but this is still a good film. I don't like this film. I have to come clean and say that my girlfriend and I watched this movie when we first started dating, didn't finish, and watched it again like a year later. This movie left a very bad taste in my mouth, so I'm gonna let her talk about it.
Hi everyone, my name is Mickey, and today I'm going to be reviewing Kiki's Delivery Service. At the beginning of my note, I put that this movie isn't one that I would seek out to watch again, but after watching the movie again, I completely changed my mind because it's just a really, really good movie. The movie opens up with Kiki discovering that that very night would be the most ideal night for her to leave home since she's 13 now. It'll be a full moon and clear skies, which was perfect for her. When she leaves home, she'll be gone for an entire year to begin her training as a witch. When Kiki makes the decision to leave, absolutely no one agrees with her. Not her mom, not her dad, and not even her cat, Gigi. It's because she was supposed to leave a month later, and everybody thinks it's too soon for her to leave. But this is the first time we see in the movie how determined she is when she sets her mind to something, because she leaves that very night. The town she chooses to stay in is absolutely beautiful, but she has trouble figuring out things at first, which is reasonable because if you really think about it, Kiki is 13. She has a fly on her broom, which she's barely good at, to a whole new town with new people, new settings. She does not know anybody, knows nothing about the place she's going to. And so, I think it's really normal for her to, have obstacles. She has trouble, finding things like accommodation, a job, friends, and so much more. Thankfully, very quickly, Kiki ends up meeting a very sweet bakery owner by the name of Osono that lets her live with her. Kiki worked at the bakery and also had her own delivery service where she delivered stuff by flying on her broomstick, which is appealing because people need delivery that's much faster than a car or a train or anything like that. So she got a good, customer flow. A beautiful part in the movie that I really liked is when Kiki met two older women that she was doing a delivery for. She ended up helping them create this little pot pie thing for the lady's granddaughter. It was so sweet. Kiki spent hours with these ladies. She helped clean, she helped fix their very old oven that barely worked. She was just a real good help around the house. And at the end, she ended up making a delivery to the lady's granddaughter, who she met, and she was very, very rude. She expressed how much she hated her grandmother's baking, which made Kiki feel very bad because she saw the time and effort the grandmother and her friend put into making Kiki a gift for her. The big conflict in the movie comes when Kiki loses her powers after experiencing Drain Out. At some point, she realizes that she can't hear Gigi speak anymore. And when that happens, she goes to try and find her broom and she cannot get up off of the ground. I think this happened because Kiki was just experiencing a whole lot of new things. She was trying to adjust to her new surroundings, and also she had a new job with different hours. She was trying to find friends and just make money, trying her best to make ends meet, and things just weren't going her way. At some point, after being very upset about her powers not working, she spent some time with her friend Ursula in Ursula's cabin in the woods. When she got back in the town she lives in, she finally spent some one-on-one time with her friend Tombo, and she ended up enjoying it very much. Towards the end of the movie, Tombo gets to ride on this very huge blimp that showed up in her town. It kind of crash landed, and finally it was able to leave. When it was leaving though, everything began to go wrong. Tombo and a few other people got stuck on the aircraft as it was flying through the sky. Once again, Kiki shows us that when she's very determined and puts her mind to something, she will succeed in it no matter what. She takes a random broom from a random man and manages to fly high up into the sky and rescue Tombo in front of the entire town. I think my favorite part about this movie is how realistic it was. Not in a sense that most 13-year-old girls are able to fly or even go to new towns by themselves, but how realistic it was in the sense of how Kiki approached situations. When she began to be burnt out, she just completely gave up, which I think is reasonable, especially for her being 13 and in a new environment. I think in some parts of the movie they really hit the mark when they show how childish Kiki can be, because she was 13 and in a new environment that she didn't really know how to approach. My two favorite scenes in the movie were the first one when she first began to fly into her new town. We just got to see the scenery of everything, and I think the animation in these movies are just really, really beautiful. And my second favorite scene is when she spent time with Tombo, just the two of them. They were flying down they were riding a bicycle down this very twisty and turny road, and they ended up flying in the air for just a little bit. It was a beautiful scene because it just showed Kiki having fun, which, throughout the movie we saw her have a little bit of fun, but not as much as this. I think at some points in the movie it was very serious and her trying her best to prove to everybody that she could do her training. However, it was good to see her finally act like a kid again.
Despite everything she said, this movie is sitting at the bottom of the list because this is my video. This is another one I've never heard of before. This one starts us off with a woman named Taiko, who is taking a trip to the countryside. While she's preparing to make this trip, she remembers things about her past, specifically the 5th grade and how different things are in her life compared to then. This film doesn't have a whole bunch going on besides what I just said, but that's what makes this film really good in my opinion. This movie is a perfect allegory for growing up. This film kinda is like a vlog. Not like a Logan Paul vlog, but someone traveling somewhere and a bunch of the footage is unedited and unfiltered. I really like the balance between the younger Taiko and the older one. She's so simple-minded, as most kids are in the 5th grade, But then we get to hear her analyze those same memories when she's older, but at the same time still finds that fondness in situations that probably stressed her out when she was in the midst of them. I find this extremely relatable because I find myself doing the same thing all the time as a 20-year-old. I think about stupid stuff I did with my friends and all the stuff that used to trouble me. I think about it and just wish I can go back and enjoy it all again. I feel so connected to Taiko and the things that she experienced because most of these things are common throughout most people's childhoods. Like not wanting to eat onions, struggling with homework, having crushes. All things I was just able to connect with, and because of that, it kept me engaged the whole way through. Honestly, I think you should just watch this movie yourself because it's truly amazing. It's really a hidden gem. Me just talking about it won't compare to just experiencing it. This is number 2 on the list. Bonjour! Oui, French fry. That's French for our next film is Porco Rosso. Apparently this film was published by Disney. I looked it up and it was redubbed by Disney for some reason, which is weird. Porco Rosso is a bounty hunter that goes after air pirates. The Pigman is the most notable bounty hunter around, but I really can't tell if it's because he's good at his job or he's a fucking pig. We found out that Porco's real name was Marco and was a human turned into a pig by a curse. The next day, the pirates from the bar looted a cruise ship and threatened Porco. So Porco takes the opportunity to go get his ship repaired. While he's making his way to Mulan, he's attacked by one of the newer pirates who shoots down the ship. Porco's okay and on a nearby island, but he has nowhere else to go with a busted plane. He's able to get a ride on a tugboat and call Gina. She tells him that there's still a warrant out for his arrest, but he doesn't listen and still heads for his mechanic. He gets to his mechanic named Piccolo, and he has a Studio Ghibli engine. The plane is now finished and Porco needs to leave Italy before the government can take his plane. They get back to the shed and Fio decides that she's gonna leave the country. I'm not gonna lie, this movie is weird and it isn't very interesting. There's a lot of weird flirting between Porco and Fio. Fio is 17.
I heard you's a pedophile, nigga. I heard you like little boys and girls, nigga.
I feel like this is one of the movies that needed a longer runtime because I feel like I'm just tossed into the movie, very confused. And because of this, I'm not too invested. Sorry to say, but I'm tapped out of this film. This is going to be at the bottom of the list, and I'm sure no one's rioting over that. If you are, leave an extra mean comment. And subscribe while you're at it. This film doesn't have a dub for some reason, and that brings up something I haven't mentioned at all in this video because I felt like it would be redundant, especially in the recent films, but the English dub performances have been very hit or miss with these films. But back to this film. We see our main character Taku heading out on a trip, but he starts to remember certain things about high school. He also remembers his friends Yutaka and his girl Rikako. Most of the guys in their school really like Rikako, but Yutaka seems to have a crush on Rikako because of her background, athleticism, and intellect. Taku is on a Hawaii trip with the school and Rikako pulls him aside to ask him for money. Now my red flags immediately went off because why you just ask him some random ass dude for cash? I'm glad he didn't just give it to her because what the hell is wrong with you? Sagers, please do not give any woman money you do not know. I repeat, do not give any woman you do not know money. After being pressed about his bread, this brother gives her the cash. They get back home and we find out Rikako made a friend named Yumi. Taku then gets a call from Yumi saying that Rikako booked tickets to Japan and lied to her mom and said that she was going to a concert. Like, this woman is a scammer. Yumi says that she called Taku because she trusts him, so he heads down to the airport. He tells Yumi that she can go home and that he'll go with her to Tokyo. They get to Rikako's dad's house and she lies again, and Taku just keeps getting himself caught up. He goes to this hotel where he tells his mom that he'll be in Tokyo and will be back soon. The call is interrupted by Rikako. She bursts into the room crying, and let me tell you, she's not fucking crying, y'all. Those aren't fucking tears. They get back from the trip and Rikako ignores Taku, which is the best thing for everybody. Taku talks to Yutaka about his trip, which Yutaka tells him that he got rejected by Rikako. He goes and confronts Rikako and slaps him. And guess what? He's sick of that shit and smacks her back, which I do not condone. Damn. Rikako gets cornered by a bunch of her girl classmates where she gets told off. Taku just happened to be walking by and he hears everything go down. He compliments her bravery but gets smacked again. Yutaka was walking by too and asked what happened to his queen. Taku tells him and then proceeds to lay his shit out. Now this movie goes back to the present. Taku gets a ride home from the airport from Yutaka. They talk about their time in college. Both of them talk like they just saw each other yesterday, but they haven't talked since senior year. They meet back up at a high school reunion where they of course meet a bunch of their other classmates. Everyone is there but Rikako. She said that she was heading back for an obscure reason, but it was really to visit Taku in Tokyo. As Taku is boarding his train, he sees Rikako, so he runs to the other side where they're face to face. He admits that he was crazy about her all along. I love this film. It's so grounded and personal. I felt so connected to this film because of where I am in my life right now. And I know that's biased, but just hear me out. This film kept me so invested despite being the shortest one so far. I really like the dynamic between Taku and Rikako since we spent so much time with the both of them. Taku bends over backwards for this woman and for little to no reason. It's not clear that he likes her because he doesn't outright say it, and he even yells at her out of frustration. But through the film, he just kinda goes along with whatever she does. Rikako is pretty shitty throughout the film, and she does have a reason, just not a very good one. Taku's kind gestures kind of balance out their dynamic because she's just a bad person for most of the film. I really like this film for the same reason I liked Only Yesterday. It just felt so relatable. Most people go through these same struggles with their friends. Most people graduate high school and live completely different lives as soon as they leave. It just kind of leaves you longing for those days to come back, where the issues that you used to deal with back then are just things you can laugh about currently. I highly recommend this film. This is one of the best Ghibli movies, hands down. And I'm glad we got to get these down to earth films, along with the whimsical ones too. It makes me hopeful for the rest of these coming up. Foreshadowing. Okay, so I'm already gonna start off. This one's a weird one. Like this one's weird. I didn't make it through the whole movie because it was strange. Raccoon Gang War. Raccoons are displaced because of humans, so since there's not enough space for everyone, the raccoons fight each other for, of course, space. Dude, they animated raccoon balls. Like, somebody was in charge of animating and drawing the raccoon balls. The raccoon gangs decide to come together so they don't get displaced. Two of the main goals of this plan was to stop humans from taking more land and to get the raccoon masters of raccoon transformation. As they were doing the transformation training, the elder raccoon told the male raccoons to stand on this carpet. He then tells them that they're all standing on his ball sack. Like, I really want to give this movie a fair chance, but I really don't know, man. I watched about an hour of this film and I got nothing out of it but raccoon ball sacks and mating. It got to a point where I was just watching the film in 1.5 speed because this one's just super long and boring, honestly. I'm done with this movie. Shizuku is a girl who reads books and lives with her parents. She notices a name in her book that she's seen before, Seiji Amasawa. Shizuku goes to school and meets her friend to check out a new book from the library. As they go home, Shizuku forgets her book at the meetup spot, so she goes back to get it. When she gets there, she sees a boy who read her song and called it stupid. The next morning, Shizuku brings her dad lunch to him because her sister is busy doing chores. While she's on the train, she sees a cat that follows her all the way to her dad's job. She sees it and keeps chasing after it until she goes into this really dark corridor. The cat leads her to this nice neighborhood with an antique shop. She sees this cat in a tuxedo and says it's fantastic. She talks to the shopkeeper about this old clock and he tells her that it's a story about a king of dwarves. He fell in love with the sheep fairy, but he can only see her once every day. Shizuku realizes that she's running late, but she leaves the shop without her lunch that she was supposed to deliver in the first place. She gets to the library where she sees the boy who was reading her song. He tells her that she forgot the bag of lunch and her lunch was enormous. The next day, she keeps looking for the Seiji Amasawa throughout her school. They keep fucking singing the West Virginia song, and I have to agree, that shit is ass. She heads to the shop again where she meets the jerk guy again, and they chat it up about the cat she saw. She tells him that she didn't see the cat statue anymore, so he invited her in to see the Baron. The next 30 minutes, Shizuku is realizing that she really likes Seiji and is now trying to become a writer. The movie poster for this film is about the story she writes, and I'm thinking this was gonna be like she gets transported into a whimsical version of Japan or something like that. I don't think my expectations for the film ruined the film for me. I think if it had a more suitable poster, I still wouldn't like this film. This movie is boring and the main character is boring. You've already dealt with a girl coming of age film and a boy love story, and both were much better than this because of the characters. And only yesterday, Taiko feels like an actual kid, and the relationship between Taiko and Rikako felt unpredictable, so I was constantly invested. I just really don't care for Seiji and I can't even say neither. I can't even fucking talk today. One thing I did like about the film was the visuals. I think that this film had the best interpretation of Japan so far. I just love the summer kind of feel in this film, and I think that it has a lot to do with the colors. Other than that, I really didn't like this film much. It's too long. I really don't see this one moving up at all. Okay, so I have a bit of a story to tell with this film. So I was in the anime club in 8th grade and it was run by my Latin teacher. This was one of the films he put on. I don't remember much past the beginning, but the teacher didn't show up one day because a student looked on his computer and said that he used the N-word on his Facebook. This is all word on the street, by the way, but I'm pretty sure this is like 95% true. Again, allegedly, this one takes place in feudal Japan. Already, I love the visuals in this one. There's something about Japanese countrysides that just make me want to gawk at it. Prince Ashitaka sees a giant worm monster that is heading towards his village. Ashitaka was able to subdue the worm-covered boar, but he got injured in the process. The boar wasn't normal. It was possessed by a demon that tells the villagers that he's going to make them suffer as he did. Ashitaka now leaves his village to go find a cure for his arm. During his travel, he comes across a village being massacred. The bandits see Ashitaka on the hill and start to pursue him. His arm activates and he fucking kills one of the people by accident. He meets this old guy who tells him that he needs to meet the spirit of the forest. When he gets to said forest, he sees 3 giant wolves and a primitive looking lady. I wonder who that could be. Ashitaka takes the injured men from the cattle accident all the way up the mountain to their home village, where he isn't greeted very warmly. He later talks to the village leader and tells her about the curse mark. He then takes Ashitaka to the garden, where he learns about her secret, which is fucking firearms. She says that she shot the boar with the lump of iron, and that was a bullet. Aboshi says that she's willing to kill the forest spirit because his blood could potentially heal her villagers, so they make an offer to Ashitaka hoping he'd stay. On his way out, he senses Princess Mononoke and she's coming to kill Aboshi. Ashitaka then uses Ultra Instinct to go get the princess, and then he leaves the village. The prince falls off his animal and Mononoke confronts him about letting her kill Aboshi, but then he passes out from the gunshot. Mononoke takes him to a nearby lake where she just kinda leaves him. Then the old guy from earlier is trying to kill the forest spirit, but apparently it's a sin to even look at it. As the spirit is transforming back into its day form, it crosses paths with Ashitaka. He wakes up and Mononoke nurses him back to health, but suddenly, the Boar clan comes and demands to kill the 2 humans. The last 30 minutes of this movie is a battle between the animals and the humans for the forest. I kinda started zoning out with this film just because of how long it is. I have a lot of mixed feelings when it comes to this film because on one hand, the film is one of the prettiest on here, but the other hand, this one is the most drawn out in my opinion. If you watch this film, you can draw a lot of parallels between this and Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. It's almost like night and day. I recommend watching this if you're a fan of either of those games. It's almost like you're watching a Zelda movie. But I feel like since this movie is so good, some of the movie is just pretty for the sake of being pretty, which makes the film kind of lose substance. I really didn't enjoy this film's plot, and it honestly just feels like a bunch of ideas mushed together. I was under the impression that this was going to be like a love story between the duo, but no. And again, expectations can easily ruin a film, but I was under the impression that this was one of the studio's most notable films because of how much praise I've seen it get. I really don't think this film is bad because I think we got some misses already, but this is making me doubt my anticipation for Spirited Away, a film I'm really excited to watch for myself.
Okay, this is a little editor's note. I kept on calling her Mononoke, and her name is San or Sen. I don't know why I did that. That was a huge mistake on my part, so don't roast me in the comments. Sorry.
This is one I've never heard of ever. I went into the AniWave comments just to get a gauge of what I'm working with, and this is one of the lowest rated films so far, and it has no comments at all. So let's see if we have an underrated classic on our hands. I'm not going to answer that sarcastically. Watch the rest of the review. This film is about the Yamadas. A bunch of normal family stuff in this film. There's not a whole bunch going on narratively. I love this film. I was originally kind of hesitant with the art style, but it's so different from every single film, and I ended up liking it a lot. I feel like since there wasn't a whole bunch going on for the backgrounds, the studio was able to put in a lot of effort into the actual animation, and the best example of this was the beginning scene with the parents getting married and having their kids. It's such a cool scene, and they use a ton of imagery of old Japanese folktales to illustrate different parts of their relationship. I can see that this film does get kind of boring, but not like dragging out boring. It's just that they aren't doing a whole lot of interesting things. And I understand if that's not your thing, but it's really nice to see how the family interacts with each other. Honestly, this is a really charming movie, and I think it's another one you should just watch on your own. This is one of the Ghibli films of all time. People love this movie, and I've seen so much about it and heard so many good things. Like I said before, this is one of the films that I'm pretty excited to see where it ranks compared to the rest of the stuff we watched. Chihiro is moving to a new house with her family. As they're making their way up to the new house, they stumble upon this shrine. They keep exploring until they realize the shrine was just an abandoned amusement park. The family finds a bunch of food in a restaurant, so they just start eating the food without permission. The only person with some common sense is Chihiro. Like, why would you just eat some random food you found? Chihiro wanders off on her own and sees a giant bathhouse. There's a boy standing there who tells her that she shouldn't be here after dark and urges her to leave. She goes to collect her parents, but they've turned into pigs. She runs back to the entrance where everything is completely different. Now she's becoming clear. He gives her a pill and she's able to touch the stuff around her again. He then takes her to the bathhouse where if she takes a breath crossing the bridge, the other spirits will see her. Once they're alone, Haku tells Chihiro that she needs to go to the boiler room to beg for a job. Right away, I really love how this movie is building tension. So many things are being set up at the very beginning, so I'm hoping we get to see all of them pay off by the end. Chihiro gets to the boiler room and asks Kamanji for a job. Kamanji says that he doesn't need any more help because of the soup balls, but they quickly give their job to Chihiro. A lady walks in and sees Chihiro, but Kamanji lies and says that they're related. In order to get a job in the boiler room, she has to talk to Ubaba first, the person she was avoiding. She gets to the top floor and asks Ubaba for a job. Ubaba says no, but Chihiro keeps persisting. Eventually, she caves and gives her a job. Chihiro signs her name away and is now Sen. The next day, Haku tells her to meet him by the bridge so that Sen can see her parents. He tells her that Ubaba takes away people's names in order to have control over them. As Sen works at the bath, this black spirit keeps following her around. It doesn't talk, but it does respond to Sen whenever she asks for something. Sen wakes up everyone trying to serve a new guest, and it gives away a ton of money. This guest is the black spirit, and he's been eating everything in sight. Instead of getting her paper up, she goes and waits for Haku upstairs. When she's thinking about her parents, she sees an injured dragon being chased by a ton of birds. Haku is able to get away, but it seems like he isn't in control right now. It flees upstairs and Sen goes after it. While she heads upstairs, she sees the black spirit again, but it turned into Nagado Avocado. She finally gets upstairs to reach Haku, and one of the paper birds that was chasing Haku finally reveals itself. It was Ubaba's twin sister, Z-Baba. And let me tell you right now, I have no clue if I made that name up or not. I really don't know. She says that Haku stole her magic and wants to steal Ubaba's too. He's able to break her seal, but then crashes into the boiler room. Sen gives Haku the medicine she got from earlier and reverts back to his human form. She now wants to return the charm that he did steal back to Z-Baba, so Kamanji gives her his only train tickets. When Haku wakes up, he realizes that Sen is gone, so he heads back to Yubaba and makes a deal with her. Haku says that if he gets her baby back, he has to release her parents from the contract that she's made. But Sen has to pass the final test in order for that to happen. Sen gets to Z-Baba's house, and she actually seems really nice to her. She says that her sister put the spell on Haku, and that she has to figure out how to save her parents on her own. Haku suddenly comes up to pick up Sen, and she tells him that he knows his real name and where they met. His name is Kohaku River, and she fell into the river by accident when she was a kid. They get back to the bathhouse where Sen does her last test, and she passes. Haku sends her off back to the real world, she meets up back with her parents, and that's it. I love this film a lot. This film was really fun to watch, and I'm glad I got to experience it for the first time. Just looking at it, you can just feel that this movie is just one of a kind. It's truly one of the best animated films ever. This was the prettiest film so far, and I really don't think that the animation will get any better than this. It feels like this film took everything good from the previous ones and just added the right amount of everything. It just feels so balanced, just the right amount of style and substance. I really enjoyed all the characters in this film, and it didn't feel like our main character was boring. Chihiro was such a great character compared to the ones we got before this film. She's so anxious about everything, but still having a child's innocence and authenticity. I didn't like that they kind of forced her being in love with Haku. I feel like they didn't spend enough time with each other for them to be considered lovers. Like, she's there for a couple of days and you tell me she's head over heels for this guy? BS, honestly. The soundtrack and the visuals were obviously amazing, probably the best so far. This film kind of felt rushed in the end. I feel like this is the only film that could have had a longer runtime, and I wouldn't mind it. The bathhouse just looks like it could be explored for hours upon hours. But even if they trim the fat of the movie, I don't think it would hit the same. We just get so many creative settings around the bathhouse, and it's kind of hard to not want more. This definitely is the best Ghibli movie I've watched so far, and if you haven't watched it before, I highly recommend this one. We have another special guest here today. Someone who drew the thumbnail and made all the expressions you see today. Kiki!
Don't y'all think it's a bit weird that the furry art student is doing a movie review, an animated movie review on The Cat Returns? I think that's a bit suspicious. I'm joking. Hey guys, I'm Kayla, and I'm here to share my review on the movie The Cat Returns. So first, the movie starts off with the main character, Haru Yoshioka. Totally not a B-star reference, let's not get that in here. A high school student who seems to be a bit quirky like every other animated movie. Everything does not seem to be going her way, by her waking up late, getting laughed at by other students, and seeing others in relationships while she tends up being alone. Womp womp. While going home with her best friend, Hiromi, she sees a cat carrying a gift in its mouth. The cat unwittingly crosses the street while a truck is driving, and Haru runs out and saves the cat from getting hit. After literally risking her life over a cat, she looks up and sees the black cat stands up on 2 feet, dusts himself off, and thank her for saving him. Now, if that was me, y'all, I truly would have thought I was on something. I must have hit my head pretty hard because that right there would have probably had me flabbergasted. Anyway, the cat proceeds to say luck will be coming her way soon and that she'll be living a happy life, and he leaves. Haru, now flabbergasted, just like me, goes home and tells her mom that the cat spoke to her, and her mom goes on to say that Haru when she was younger, she had a memory of her feeding a small kitten and she was communicating with the kitten because the cat was meowing back, thanking her, end quote. But of course, that's not what she meant. Haru goes to bed and starts hearing ringing bells outside. She looks out her window and sees a line of walking cats on 2 feet, playing instruments, tuxedo cats kicking alley cats away, and cats carrying lanterns over a king cat. King Cat goes on to thank Haru for saving his son, who is a prince, and tells her that she'll be granted with some great gifts from the Cat Kingdom. Haru is just speechless, thinking most likely that this is a dream, and then they proceed to go away. The next morning, Haru wakes up rushing to school, realizing that things are different, such as cattail plants in her front yard, cats chasing her to school due to her smelling like catnip, and a locker full of mice. Y'all, I can't do that. Haru is in defeat, decides to help Hiromi with her cleaning duties to get her mind off, and she's taking out the trash, but as she's taking out the trash, she gets greeted with a cat servant, who is confused why Haru doesn't like the gifts that she was given by the Cat Kingdom. Clearly, she isn't a cat, but then he offers the choice to marry the prince, who is the cat, by the way. I don't think y'all have that click in y'all here yet. Haru is very conflicted because clearly he is a cat, but the cat servant convinces her by stating how great the Cat Kingdom is. It's very peaceful, a lot of grassland, and you get to relax all day, which got Haru through a lot of mixed feelings. But then she goes on saying she wouldn't mind marrying the prince for that type of lifestyle. Girl, are you serious?
What the fuck is you talking about?
So, with her mixed signals, the cat servant took it as a yes to the marriage and tells her they're gonna pick her up tonight and take her to the Cat Kingdom, and then they go leave. Haru regrets her decision, but a beautiful voice speaks to her, out of nowhere by the way, and tells her to meet up with a large white cat to go to the cat business office. So she does that, imagining listening to a stranger's voice out of thin air and proceeds to follow what it tells you to do. This is why I can't be watching movies, y'all, because I swear I'm going to be stating these things. So she goes off and searches off for this large white cat, which she does, and he takes her to the village where the office was at. She waits and this bright light comes out of nowhere and shines through a window of a house where a cat figurine is seen, and it comes to life. But y'all, it is a tiny cat man with a white suit, a white top hat, and a cane. He gets down. He don't play. Look at that fit. He got that on. Anyway, Haru states that a random voice told her to go to him because he'll be able to fix what's going on. And after some cake, some tea, the cat servant pulls up and straight up kidnapped this girl with all these cats and take her to the cat kingdom because he ain't forget about that wedding. He wants them to get down. Now we are in the cat kingdom, y'all. We are finally in the cat kingdom. Haru and Muta pulls up in this grassland with cats in their small homes. And this white cat with a pink bow tie, not Marie from Disney, 2 different movies, y'all, 2 different companies, walks up to Haru saying that she gotta go. She can't be in her hood. She gotta get out of here. But then the cat servant comes up with his cat crew about to take Haru so she can get ready for her marriage. She declines it, but then proceeds to say it would be rude to not say hi to the prince. So now we in the castle. It's real fancy, full of cats, and as soon as Haru pulls up, they take her to the dressing room and start putting her in dresses. She tells them that's not what she's here for, but then the king cat shows up and tells her, yes it is, and turns her to a cat. Real quick. I don't understand how he did that, but everybody's flabbergasted. Haru is processing this, by the way, so she's having a moment. And meanwhile, while that's happening, Muta get pulled into a room full of food, of course, and somehow drown in jello. So she started crying. She basically started crying because she lost her friend due to jello. So they take her out to dinner with these other cats that seemed to be in like different cultures. Like they had like an Egyptian cat and an African cat. It was pretty interesting during Black History Month. Love to see it. But the Baron comes back and saves Haru from Muta and escape the castle while the white cat proceeds to save them through the escape room or whatever. They escape, but then Haru realizes that she gotta turn back to human. So the only reason or the only way she could turn back to human is by going through the human portal, which they went through before sunset, or she'll be a cat forever. So they go through a whole maze, get to a tower, because at the top is where the portal is. But when they get to the top, the king cat blows up the whole tower. So they feel a little bit defeated or whatever. But then, guess who shows up, y'all? The prince. The prince, the black cat that she saved in the beginning of the movie, the prince shows up with his cat army and these little British coats. He's like, what is going on? What is happening? He pulled up to his father. He's like, yo, bro, what is all this? Like, what, are you serious? Are you trying to force this lady into marrying me? You're sick. You're crazy. He's like, I'm trying to marry Yuki. Who is Yuki? Yuki is the white cat with the pink bow tie. The same cat trying to tell them to get out their hood. She's like, you need to get out of here. Meanwhile, she's the one who's locked in with this prince. That's why she was not playing. Everyone's flabbergasted. But Yuki goes to tell Haru that she is the cat that she saved when she was a kitten. And without her feeding her, she would have died. Which is insane, but the prince tells Haru that they can reach to the top and get through the portal before it's too late. Muta throws Haru up there and then states that he is some huge criminal in the cat kingdom, which is why he hasn't been back. Everyone starts freaking out, but we don't care about that right now. Haru runs to the top while Baron and the king have a duel, and clearly king laws. Haru finally reaches to the top and realizes that the portal is in the sky. So when she climbs in, she's falling through the sky, and then Muta comes to come save her, but then he grabs her and starts falling through the sky. And then the Baron comes and grabs her and then tell her to admire the view while they're falling through the sky. But it's okay though. Toto, the lovely big bird, not Sesame Street, comes in with a bunch of other birds, and they come and save Haru and the crew. He then lands Haru at school, and she goes on to say that she learned a life lesson. What was that life lesson? I don't even know, but y'all can figure it out for yourselves. And that's the end of the movie. Oh my god, it was such a great movie, a very interesting movie. Like, it wasn't very concerning parts. I also forgot to mention that when the prince refused the marriage, the king was like, okay, then you could just marry me then. Haru was like, you sick pervert, I'm not. And she just slapped him like, I'm not marrying you. You just trying to force me to marry your son. Here you go trying to force me to marry you now. You are sick. But I've been watching it. I really enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed the animation. The art style was really beautiful. I gave it like an 8 out of 10, you know. But it was also just a very interesting plot. Like, I don't know why they try to force the marriage so much, but, hey man, cats and people, they don't have a type, they don't gotta have a love relationship. You know what I mean? So y'all, let me pass the mic down to the next person. Hope you enjoy my review. Check out the movie and have a good night or good day. My apologies.
Hey everyone, I'm back to review Howls Moving Castle, which in my opinion might be one of the best movies on this list. To be honest, Howls Moving Castle is just in a field of its own. I know I said in Kiki's delivery service, oh my god, sorry. In Kiki's delivery service that the movie was really good, like visually wise. Howls Moving Castle, 15 times better than that, okay? It's absolutely beautiful. Let's be honest, Ponyo might take the crown for the best visually aesthetic movie on this list. However, Howls Moving Castle is a close second, okay? I love the movie so much because it's just action-packed. Not only is it action-packed, but the storyline itself, minus the action, is beautiful. You know what I mean? The story opens up with Sophie. She works in the hat shop. Sophie works in the hat shop, and she's just an honest girl. She does what she needs to do to get by. Her sister is beautiful. Sophie does not see herself as beautiful as she should. Because, let's be honest, Sophie is gorgeous. And then she meets Howl. Very unexpectedly, she meets Howl walking down the street. Walking down a back road, she ran into these military men that were messing with her. He swooped in and saved her. What a gentleman. Love that for him. The first interaction was beautiful. Like, how could you not fall in love with that man after that? Like, hello? Then later on that night, she gets visited by a witch who turns her into an old woman. Now, Sophie is completely flabbergasted into why this woman would do this. Because she met Howl once. You know, they didn't even have much of a conversation or anything. He helped her and he went on about his day. And she went on about hers. But after she got turned into an old woman, she's like, oh my God, nobody can ever see me again. So she leaves her hometown. And surprisingly, she just waltzes into Howl's house, his moving castle. And you know, the story is very long. Sometimes, in this instance, I had a hard time understanding how this movie could be like targeted towards kids. Because the first time I watched it, I was very, very confused about what was going on. I feel like some of the themes are a little bit complex, especially for like a little kid to understand. Most movies targeted towards kids don't have that much stuff going on. But the movie is fast-paced, in my opinion. It's very fast-paced. However, it's worth it. It's worth to watch because it's a really good movie. There's so many theories in the movie. My favorite theory is that Howl, when he first meets Zoe, he says, there you are, I've been looking all over for you. It's because towards the end of the movie, she goes back in time, sorta, and sees young Howl before he got all his powers, I think. And she tells Howl, look for me in the future. So, when he meets her in the future, he's like, there you are, I've been looking all over for you, because she told him to, and he did exactly what she told him to. We love a man that listens. You know what I mean? Howls Moving Castle. Beautiful movie. If I could rate it, it would break my scale. 11 out of 10. Even more than that. You know what I mean? It'd probably be in my top 5 of all Ghibli movies. But I haven't seen all the movies, so I'm gonna chill on that. But honestly, I think the movie was really good.
Now that I have my channel back, I remember in the 7th grade, one of the books I read was Wizard of Earthsea. I don't remember much about the book, but I remember saying, yo, what if this book had a movie? So when I looked it up, apparently this is it. What a butterfly effect, right? I read the book and now I'm making another hour-long video. Did I mention that this is the lowest rated Ghibli film so far? This one has a 36 on Rotten Tomatoes and a 46% on audience rating. Did I also mention that I didn't like the book? I watched about 30 minutes of this film and it was an absolute sleeper. I was watching in 1.5 speed too, which is actually kind of crazy. With the films at the bottom of the list so far, I can see the appeal and why at least 3 people will like them. But this one feels so niche, so it makes me kind of poop my diaper because I don't really care for what's going on. The actual film looks kind of generic in a way. It looks like these character designs are the simplest we've seen. I don't know if it's just my brain making up excuses not to like the movie, but to me this film just looks like it's not done. The backgrounds are fine, nothing we haven't seen before, but they can't carry a movie alone, unless you're Howl's Moving Castle. This was a definite sleeper, especially sitting at 2 hours long, so I think this might solidify the bottom of the list. Would you believe me if I told you there was a movie rated worse than this one? Stay tuned. Let's welcome our other and last special guest, Day2703, also known as So Hot. Take it away.
What is up, Sagers? No, you don't have to turn up or down. Check your phone, because this is right. You are hearing your boy So Hot. He brought me back again, but this time I finally made it out of the basement and I'm on the main channel. So let's take a moment and rejoice for seeing some real charm, charisma, and talent finally be brought to y'all. So I'm gonna give y'all a little bit of moment of silence as y'all, turn y'all fans on, because it's getting a little bit too hot in here. It's so hot in the building, so let's just relax. Alright, I'm done. But seriously, I want to say thank you to Rans, give him a shout out for allowing me to come up here and give y'all some talk, some play about Ponyo, real spill. So now let's get into Ponyo. The first time I saw Ponyo was back in like 2009 or 8. There was this Ponyo commercial that used to come on every day, like 3 times a day. I don't know if it was Cartoon Network or Disney, but I just remember, like, damn, what is this? Like, what is Ponyo? So, being a kid and being subjected to the marketing strategies, I was like, Mom, can we go see Ponyo? She said no, but I was able to get it on DVD. Bootleg, of course, from the barbershop. Dad came in clutch with that. Shout out to all the black fathers. So what I can remember from the movie is that it was pretty boring. A lot of movies I saw when I was a kid, I remember them being very boring. Like, I remember that beginning getting me interested, and I remember the ends. But I just remember, I guess, the plot being so boring. So that movie was something that was just boring to me. But I do remember Ponyo's mother, Yo Soy Madre, was absolute fire. So now let's fast forward to this decade. The homie Rams is like, I'm thinking about ranking the Ghibli movies, and I want my friends to, give me some feedback. And I was like, yo, I've seen only one Ghibli film, and that's Ponyo. He was like, calm down, baby bro, relax, use your inside voice. So I slapped him, because stop calling me baby bro. But he was like, yo, you can, do your little thing. So I was like, all right, bet. So I went home, put it up in the legal website, because I'm not buying Ponyo, and I watched that joint. Now, y'all, this movie was some heat. Young DeMar was not a cinema connoisseur saying this movie was boring. This movie was heat. The animation was pure magic. Something that I thought was so awesome about this movie was the magic. So whenever Ponyo's mom or dad or her took control of the water, it would turn into fishes. It would turn into catfishes. So the dad, he would turn it, he had more control, so it would be little catfishes, and he would just control the waves. But when Ponyo had took the magic, it was just this giant tsunami of catfish. And to the people, it's just water, but to us, the viewers in Ponyo, they turned it into catfishes. And so the waves would turn into the fish and then go and do whatever they wanted it to do. And I thought that was awesome to let us know that this is not regular water. Now let's get on to the characters. That little nigga Sosuke, I believe, because it's not Sasuke, from Naruto. Chidori! It's not him, it's Sosuke. That was big pimpin', spending G's, spinning the block, fit check, make your bitch wet. That man had hoes. And then you're like, yo, this is a kid. I understand that. Why, when he pull up to the daycare, All the little girls, Sosuke, 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 you look really nice today, Sosuke. I love you, Sosuke. You want egg? Well, like for real, like when they saw Sosuke, they was on bro dick heavy. And then when Ponyo saw him, she wanted him bad. And I'm just like, yo, I'm telling y'all, this movie would hit so different if they were a little bit older. Not saying I want the rated R stuff. I'm just saying if they could really dive into like, love and stuff, because Sosuke and Ponyo did love each other. Like that was said in the movie that they loved each other. But for him to make a girl, mind you, y'all, another thing I want to say, this movie took place within 2 days. This was not a week, a weekend, a month. This was 2 days. So for him, for knowing a girl for a day, to make her want to give up her god powers to be with him, crazy. Sosuke, I was not familiar with your game. Now I am. Teach me your ways. So yeah, I was talking about Ponyo. Homegirl was strong. Sosuke, they kissed like once. So I don't know what she got going on. I don't want none of that. But now Ponyo's mom, she could get it. When she came on the screen, man, I couldn't control myself. That lady was looking good. I'm talking so good, I want to take her on a first class ticket to Pound Town on the Goon Express. If you catch my drift, you catch my drift. So overall, this was a really good movie. I would give it an S tier. Mr. Ghibli did his thing. I don't know if they're called Studio Ghiblis because they're all directed by Mr. Ghibli himself. I don't really get into all of that. The only Ghibli film I saw was Ponyo. I want to say thank you to Ranson for giving your boy a shot on the main channel. I really appreciate it. Y'all should follow me Twitch, TikTok, and YouTube. SoHot27. I'm trying to get up there with Rans, get my views like that. I play games. I do a little this, do a little that. Alright, everybody, stay black.
Thank you for all the kind words you said. See you on Saturday. I have no idea what he said yet. This is one I've never watched before, but I have seen ads about it and wanted to watch when I was like 7. Sho is going to stay at his mom's old house. When he's in the yard, he sees a tiny woman, but before he could take a closer look, his aunt calls him. This film is also called The Secret World of Arrietty, and I've been saying it as Arrietty. Charge my head, not my heart. This is Arrietty. Her and her family are known as borrowers. Arrietty is going on her first borrow with her dad, which is just stealing from the regular humans. While they're out on their stealing sesh, they run into Sho, and Arrietty drops the sugar that they got. The next day, Sho leaves the sugar by event so that she could get it. The rest of the film is Sho communicating to Arrietty. Arrietty's mom gets captured by the maid, and her and Sean. Alright, let me explain this. So, I think they localized the film to make his name Sean, and sometimes they say Sean, but in the anime description, and of course in Japanese, his name is Sho. It's really weird, so I keep confusing the two. The movie ends with Arrietty and her family moving away. This film is a snooze fest. I think that creators wanted to make a film about small people, but I don't think that could stand on its own. There's no explanation for why they're little, no magic, no ancient curse. They're just small people who live in the walls. Also, Sho's the corniest guy alive. He just came across so boring. No personality at all compared to what we've seen already. Another gripe is that the maid was supposed to be the antagonist, but she was just kind of annoying. I'm going to compare this one to Ponyo. In that one, the dad is trying to stop Ponyo from leaving her, so her powers don't disrupt the natural order of the universe. He had a good reason to go after her, and as the audience, we have some sort of sympathy for him. But with Arrietty, the conflict here is that she just doesn't like little people, which is so weak compared to a lot of the films we had so far. Honestly, this wasn't the worst film that we had, but probably one of the most boring. And that's how I end the review. I just moved on to the next one because I really didn't care to finish the sentence. This one, I'm going to use the Anwave description because why not? Umi is a high school student living with her family in Yokohama in 1963. From their home on a hill looking over the ocean, she raises 2 flags every morning towards the bay to convey a message. When a poem about her flags is published in the school newspaper, Umi wonders if the bold editor Shun is the author. As they team up to save their school's historic clubhouse, Umi and Shun uncover a hidden truth about their past that changes the course of their blossoming romance. Against the backdrop of Japan's evolving blend of tradition and modernity, their story is one of companionship, love, and ambition. Now you're probably wondering, what's the hidden truth? I'm gonna give you a second to guess. Pause the video right now. They're siblings! In the film, they're implied to be biological siblings, but by the end of it, they're just adopted siblings. This one was a little weird. It wasn't bad, but just a bit strange. I feel like these past couple of films have been feeling kinda sterile. I feel like Ponyo was the last film that I was actually excited about and delivered, and that one was 3 films ago. Not to say that this movie is gonna be bad, but it feels like the studio is just running out of steam. Jiro wants to be a pilot, but he can't because of his terrible eyesight. He has a dream about an Italian engineer, and he decides that he'll create planes as well. As Jiro's heading to university, there's a huge earthquake that stops his train. He helps this girl and his caretaker because she broke her leg during the crash. 2 years later, I know right, a huge leap, he receives a package at his university from the lady. Jiro heads back home for the day and his sister is waiting for him in his room. He tells her that he tried to go get the names of the 2 ladies, but their house burned down. Fast forward again, and we see Jiro starting to work for an airplane manufacturer. He helps engineer a new plane that was approved by his boss, but when the test flight took place, the plane crashed out. Jiro is then told that he was their last attempt at making a plane, but he was recommended to a new job in Germany. They get back to Germany where they're able to test fly a new German aircraft. The two realize how far behind Japan is when it comes to engineering and are frustrated with how advanced the Germans are. Jiro gets back to Japan and is given a new job as chief engineer. He meets a plane guy again where he tells Jiro that his job won't last forever and that he should make the most out of it. Jiro gets to this country club and he marries the girl that he helped save from the beginning. She's of age, I'm pretty sure. I hope so. Anyway, the rest of the movie is about Jiro making planes and his wife being sick. And I think she dies at the end. I don't really care. This film was a massive letdown. It's not that I didn't like it, but it just got really slow towards the middle of the movie. The first half we see him change as a kid who wanted to make beautiful airplanes to someone that's trying to benefit his country. But I think it would have been better if Jiro saw the ramifications of his planes firsthand and realized that the creations are hurting people. I feel like the film was going in that sort of direction, but it's kind of long and it kind of tails off in the end for me. I really don't think I will watch this movie again despite having some pretty good visuals. I'm sorry to complain about the length of these movies, but I feel like a film can have a short runtime and still be good. I really don't think that movies have to be super long experiences because the film can be more concerned about getting to that 2-hour mark rather than telling the story in the most concise way possible. And it's not just Ghibli films, other studios are guilty of this too, but I'd rather have a 1-hour film with the content all focused on the narrative than a 2-hour film with scenes that don't matter much. All that to say, next film.
Hey, what is up, Drama Alert Nation? It is towards the end of the video, and I went to go download Princess Kaguya, and I could not. So, I'm just gonna summarize this one very quickly. This one was basically a folktale, a Japanese folktale of a princess who came down from a bamboo shoot, and her dad was trying to make her live the rich lifestyle, but she didn't want that. Eventually she was like, okay, I'm gonna be a princess. The moon people, where she was originally from, the moon, they came and took her back. So yeah, I remember I didn't really like this film, not because it was bad. The animation was pretty good, but I think it was just because I don't think I was this film's target audience. So there you go, next film. Hi, this is Editor Rants again. This is my 8th time trying to record this. I'm very tired from editing, so I'm just gonna summarize this film. The last recording, I called the main character Marnie. Her name isn't Marnie, it's Anna. Anna she has asthma, and she goes to a relative's house to stay because they have clean air in their neck of the woods. And she keeps seeing this blonde girl at this mansion. Turns out the blonde girl was her grandmother. And they find that out at the end of the film, And yeah, I didn't really like the first part and the main part of the film, but it did come together with the end, and I like that. So that's it. Next film.
Okay, this film I'm pretty sure is like an animation project. There's no words, so I can't really explain to you what's going on. I'm not sure if it would be even fair to rank this film because Ghibli had very little involvement. I don't know, this is the only one I'm not gonna watch. You can look into it yourself if you're really that interested, but I'm not gonna do that here. And finally, our last film. This is apparently the worst Ghibli film according to critics, so I'm really excited to see where it ranks. This is also the only film that uses full CGI. And it's not like the studio hasn't used CGI before, but I imagine that this is part of the reason why the film scored so low. It is. This movie just looks terrible, and I can cut it some slack for it being released in 2020 with, but this doesn't look good at all. I feel like I cheated you guys out of a review because this is just kind of terrible. But hey, that's our last film. And I know some of you are like, what's the point in hearing? What's the point in hearing? I have no way to download that movie, so I'll probably do a separate review on that and add it to the ranking later. So don't worry about it. It's gonna get here soon. Don't worry. Before we get into the final ranking, I would like to give a huge thanks to the people who came on and did a section of this for me. It was a very big project, and I'm super glad with how it came out. And of course, I'll leave all their links below. Now that the wait is over, here's the final ranking. Starting with number 24, Earwig and the Witch, The Red Turtle, Tales from Earthsea, Pom Poko, Arrietty, The Tale of Princess Kaguya, Porco Rosso, Whisper of the Heart, The Wind Rises, Kiki's Delivery Service, From Up on Poppy Hill, When Marnie Was There, Nausicaa, My Neighbor Totoro, Princess Mononoke, Grave of the Fireflies, The Cat Returns, Howls Moving Castle, Only Yesterday, My Neighbors the Yamadas, Ocean Waves, Castle in the Sky, Spirited Away, and Ponyo. Now this was a very interesting experience. I really enjoyed a lot of these films, and I can say that some of these are the best movies I've ever seen. Ponyo was of course number one over Spirited Away because that was honestly the best movie I've seen in a very, very long time. It was truly one of a kind, and I'm glad I was able to see it on my own. I'd say the top 5 movies are the closest films to perfect because they all just come together so well. I think this experience mainly taught me that I am not a movie guy, or at least a movie marathon type of guy, because a lot of these films were one, long, and then some of them were like boring. So, I don't know, I probably won't do this again for a good while. I highly recommend you look at most of these films, especially the top 10, but until the next super long video about me ranking movies or a show, I'm gonna sink 100 hours into Persona 3 Reload and get some Vic Roys. Woo, we're done. Oh my gosh, we're done.